there's no conscious, overt choice of like, I'm going to stay with a predator. It's nothing of the sort. What happens is when we meet somebody and they are benevolent, kind, generous, spiritual, they make us feel seen, known, loved. We have a moment with the Lord that we attribute to their leadership. It is almost impossible to change our mind on how we first believe someone when they gave us their first impression. We are so married to our understanding of who they are the first time that we've met them that we cannot deal with the dissonance of who and what they could do behind closed doors that do not match the reality that they've presented to us, even if that information is presented to us by someone we care for, by someone we love. It could be our own kid. And we might still side with the predator, that abuser of power. Again, this is amplified in faith context, because when you mix the spiritual with the abuse, it is so dangerous for the psyche, because you're like, no, I believe that this person is good. And what we do is we employ that confirmation bias of, I will look for reasons, I will look extra hard for reasons that will agree and confirm my initial belief about this person. Yeah. And I will stick to that. So then we build this resume in our brain of why this person could never do this, even if there's clear, concrete evidence proving that this person has done a hellacious act. We give what we call the halo effect. We give them this halo, and everything they touch is gold. Everything they touch, everything they do is right. And we weigh their accolades and how they made us feel. And we overly value any kindness they offer to continually keep that halo on their head. They might look our way, give a handshake, during the greeting time at church, and we feel like, oh my gosh, they think the world of us. So we'll go to bat for them at an unequal proportion of the kindness they've shown to us.
Right.
And we'll begin to see things from their side. We're essentially groomed. We're corporately groomed.
Yeah.
And know that narcissists who are abusing their power, they are going out of their way to corporately groom people, because if things ever do hit the fan, they need their troops ready to defend them. And it's outrageously effective. We see this time and time again. We see this with recently the Andy Savage case. He had a standing ovation after he personally had his own mouth admitted to sexual abuse of a minor. He was given a standing ovation.
Right.
That's how you groom corporately. That's how you convince people this person is good. Now, when you cross those wires with some faulty theology that offers forgiveness without repentance, shoot, we just that's a whole hot mess. It's a whole hot mess, because we're offering what is not to be given. I really love to look at the story of David and Nathan, where Nathan is a whistleblower. He's an ally. He's a male ally to Bathsheba. And often we don't see it that way because they're not in the same scene.
Right.
But he goes before David. I know who you are and I know what you've done. And he reads him as mail. And what does David do? He repents. He repents. We love to be like, no, don't touch the Lord's anointed. He's a man after God's own heart. David repented. He was full of sorrow. And we would love to think that he was restored fully. He was never fully restored to what he had before he abused his power at Bathsheba's expense. His own son tried to take his throne. His kingdom was never what it was before. Even the Ancient of Days isn't going to let things go. There's consequences.
Right. Yeah. The idea of the corporate grooming is like super powerful. And that's something that comes up quite a bit in the show when I chat with people. And even before that, I remember talking to, I remember just talking to a pastor about a large megachurch pastor within the Independent Baptist movement. And, we brought up all these different allegations that had been made and all these different things. And he just said, I just can't believe that, because, when I was a young pastor, I didn't have any money. He's like, he took me out and he bought me my first suit and he bought me this pair of shoes, and he took care of my family when we went through this. And, I've also heard the statements recently, it's someone was on the phone and they said, do you really want to throw away someone's entire life over, one bad action out of 30 years of ministry? That those kind of statements are true. Do you think there's also that level too, where we're worried of admitting that we were groomed? Like, do you think there's a level where we're sitting there going, man, if we admit that they did this, we're admitting that the person that we brought our kids to their church's Sunday school, or we put
Yeah.
our kids in this school, we're admitting that we missed a red flag. Do you think there's that level of it as well?
Yeah. I just have to say, you were the first person to ask that question. And that is a conversation that I have not had with anyone yet around this book. So I just first want to say thank you for seeing it from that angle. That's so valuable. And there is this moment when we see somebody do something bad who formerly we believed was good, and we can't handle the dissonant reality that people are both good and bad. Shonda Rhimes seemed to figure that out, but we can't seem to figure it out, that people can be both good and bad. Because what happens is, not only do we have to admit that we've been groomed and that we've been duped, and we're questioning how we trust people, not just that person, but how we have treated and trusted and delivered our own connection with other people. We also have to admit that this can happen to us. We love to believe that a woman deserved it, because if she didn't, then the whole system is ruined and anyone is fair game to be abused or taken advantage of. And there's no way to prevent it on our own. And that's terrifying. And I think for me, I've just never thought of it like that. The way you presented it is, in my own situation, I was so proud. I mean, the majority of mentors in my life have been men, amazing men of God, of valor and kindness and respect and dignity and honor and accountability. And so when I was so preyed upon, I not only felt shame, like, how did I not see this? But I was taught to trust. I was taught to trust my leaders. I was taught to trust my spiritual leaders, that they had my best interest at heart. So it's also this, it's this abuse of trust that we have to grapple with. It's not only we have to admit that we're groomed, and there's shame in that. There really is some shame in that we have to process, but admitting that we have been preyed upon, and our spirituality and our body and our time and our generosity have all been preyed upon to advance somebody else's agenda that will not serve the flock, that will not serve the whole, but that is self-serving. I want to go back to a statement you said, but this is the guy who taught Sunday school. This guy bought me my first suit. This guy dedicated my babies. This guy baptized me when I was 17. He couldn't possibly do this, right?
He married us.
He married us, Yeah, he buried my mom. We have all these moments. And often it's in really crucial moments that meant a lot to us. And the sad thing is, likely he knew that meant a lot to us. And secondly, it is something to grieve. It just is something to grieve that somebody who could be so benevolent and kind is also taking advantage of women or abusing his power, any imbalance of power. I'm not talking about women anymore, just any imbalance of power, taking advantage of finances, taking advantage and just lying, dishonesty, the list goes on. In my situation, infidelity aside, this person was a monster. And so the imbalance of power can go so far when you feel like you walk in the room and this person's going to slander you, but they also dedicated your babies. And when you were in a tight spot, they were the first person you called because you trusted them to show up, and they did. And so again, being able to see that, again, look at the example of David, a man after God's own heart, and chosen as the king of Israel, but still sexually assaulted a woman.
Thank you for listening to the Preacher Boys podcast. If you appreciated the content on the show, please leave a review on iTunes, and don't forget to connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter with the handle @PreacherBoysDoc. Additional information can always be found on PreacherBoysDoc.com.